So let me start with a speech which Mr. J.R.D. Tata gave at the Oxford University in 1956. He highlighted three critical requirements of every employee. The first, he said, is providing basic material needs of the workers. The second, he said, which is satisfying the more intangible but equally strong human desire for self-expression and fulfillment. And third, he said, coping with the special problems of workers relocated from a village to a modern industrial community, because village and tribal individuals suffer acutely from the disintegration of their previous background and spiritual values and from the loss of individuality. 60 years earlier, J.R.D. Tata had identified these as the three critical requirements of the workforce which every corporation needs to look for. If you look at it in today's terms, he's talking about IQ, EQ and SQ in some form or the other. Your intelligence quotient, your emotional quotient, and now what is increasingly becoming popular, your spiritual quotient, and how companies can contribute that for blue collar workers at the lowest level. Interestingly, in 1906, when there was a survey, it was mentioned that Jamshedpur and the nearby areas are absolutely unsuited to establish any form of industry there. Industries were supposed to be discouraged from establishing there because no recruitment would ever be possible. In this decade, Tata Steel in Jamshedpur is celebrating 9 decades of industrial harmony, and that too in a Naxalite hotbed where 6,000 people have been killed in some form of Naxal violence in the last 40 years, but not a single one who is from the Tata ecosystem. In fact, Tatas can freely go into the local ecosystem and work with the tribals and the left of center citizens where government people are finding it difficult. So it's one thing to think of industry and business and economics sitting in conference rooms with air condition, and it is the other to execute that because the factories and the real labor force is in the hinterland of India. So what goes into making this a success story is also very vital and critical. So let me talk about recruitment, how it can be done with a difference. I'll take the example of Titan. In 1987, when the Titan township was to be started at Hosur in Tamil Nadu, Xerxes Desai, the then managing director of Titan, said that we don't want to drain the resources of Hosur. We will establish our own township and we will not disturb the equilibrium of the employment patterns in Hosur. So what did they do? They went to about 200 kilometers radius around Hosur in the Krishnagiri and Dharmapuri districts of Tamil Nadu and went to schools and addressed students who were completing 10th and 12th class and said that here is an opportunity to join a internship program, an apprentice program, and join the watchmaking industry. You're welcome to participate in the examination, test, etc., etc. All of that was conducted. 400 such youth were taken. They were brought to Hosur. They were housed in hostels. The managing director of the company selected employees who would act as foster fathers of these children. They were taught precision making engineering for watchmaking during the day, and the evening hours they were taught human values and the fundamental principles of life. Every weekend they were taken to the orphanage to serve food to the disadvantaged children so that they know how privileged they are compared to those children. And when they received their first stipend of 450 rupees, it was the largest amount they had ever seen in their family. They used the surplus amount they gained thus for educating their siblings, and 20 years later 85% of the employees in the Hosur plant had some graduate degree or the other, and they had directly and indirectly benefited over 33,000 people through this opportunity in that region, because a lot of people had gone through this apprenticeship training and ventured into entrepreneurship. So here is an example in this era of job creation and social entrepreneurship as to how large-scale organizations can do recruitment and training in such a way that the socio-economic and demographic profile of an industry can change. Another example of training, Tata Motors was establishing their plant in Chinchwad in Pune, and the experience in Mumbai was that, as JRD said, People who are brought from the rural areas to the cities, if they are not given the right kind of orientation, what happens? Ghettoization. They end up in slums. There is no opportunity for them to live dignified lives. So Suman Mulgaonkar, the then managing director, insisted that all of the apprentices should stay in the hostel with engineers, provided a detailed personality development schedule for them, that they would get up in the morning, they would go for sports and games, they would go for their theory and training classes in Tata Motors during the daytime, come back in the evening, participate in other activities, have uniforms, and all of this. Why? So that they are used to a disciplined lifestyle and a particular way of living, so that once they complete their training and move out, they will not go to slums, but they will live lives the way they have learned after getting into Tata Motors from their village background.